Hi, my name is Kathy, and welcome to the first episode of my new podcast, Northwest Knitting. I'm living in Eugene, Oregon, in the Pacific Northwest, and this is where I've been knitting and being passionate about wool and woolly adventures. I live here with my husband, Dennis, who is a wonderful fiber husband, and he has really been great, especially during the pandemic. And if I'm troubled about a garment and how it's going, he'll say, I'm sure it'll block out nicely. So I suggest everybody have somebody in their life who'll say that for them. I have been knitting I learned to knit over 50 years ago when I was a senior in high school. And instead of taking it slow at that time, my mother, who I never saw her knit, but somehow she had learned to knit, and she helped me knit a turtleneck long sleeve sweater. So I didn't start with a scarf or a hat or something simpler. We just embarked right into the sweater, and it was made with a horrible acrylic yarn, and even though some of the acrylics now are gorgeous and work just fine, I can tell you that 50 years ago acrylics were just not that great, and if I had it today, I'm sure nobody would want to wear it. I had a lot of trouble with that project, but it was completed, and I remember knitting very, very tightly. And then I didn't knit again for a very long time. I did do a big crochet project, which was just simple crochet, a big massive blankety thing. But I didn't do any of those crafts until maybe the 2008 or so, or maybe even earlier. But I was in a store and I saw a little shawl that someone had knit out of kind of a fancy ribbon yarn, and I thought I could do that. And it didn't really work with the ribbon yarn for a new knitter, but I went to a local yarn store with a friend and came out with a pair of beautiful straight wooden needles and some lovely woolly red yarn, and knit myself a scarf. So I was initially taught to knit English style, throwing my yarn with my right hand. But at some point, when I started really getting into knitting again, I was having a lot of trouble with my wrists and having pain whenever I threw the yarn. So I ended up finding out about Continental and switched to Continental. And since then, I have really not had much of a problem, except sometimes just from overuse. And now I'm getting a little arthritis in my thumbs, so we'll see how it goes. But Continental knitting solved my problem. At the time, I was also on the computer and a lot, and I think that was part of the problem. So anyway, I did get bogged down for a long time with sticking just to things that I knew how to knit, and I didn't get into garments until maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And since then I've been off and running on with garments, and I have to say that's my main thing. I do hats and shawls would be the other thing, and I have a wonderful year-old granddaughter, so I love to knit for her, but mostly I'm interested in knitting clothes for myself. I think part of what the thing that got me into knitting as with sewing when I was in high school. I also sewed a lot. And I think what got me in both times is that I wanted the item that I was knitting. I had trouble finding clothes in natural fibers, or clothes that fit me or were in the right colors and so forth. I have to say, over the years, that's been a common theme for me. So I have always wanted to have the garment. I really enjoy the process, but a lot of it for me is trying to make something that I'll feel good in. So I could say lots more about my history, but I think I'll just bring some of that in later if I keep going forward with this. So what I'd like to do, though, first is to start talking about the sweater I'm wearing. So this is the Lunenburg Pullover by Amy Christoffers, and she's also known as Savory Knitting. I have knit, I think this is my 4th pattern of hers, and every one has just been a wonderful success. Really, of the things I've knit, I have to say her 4 sweaters have been really great. So with this one, it has, it's really a wonderful fun yoke, as you can see. And one thing that's different about it, it was the first time that I did any purling in a colorwork sweater. So I was a little worried about what that might look like, but it just was no problem at all. I don't mind purling. Unlike a lot of people, I know people hate purling and complain about it, but for me, maybe because I knit continental, it's almost easier to purl for me than it is to knit. So I didn't mind it at all, and it doesn't change anything really. I knit with yarn in both hands, so it's just kind of gets a rhythm going and works out pretty well for me. I think having learned English style initially made it easier for me to get into color work, so that's kind of nice. But anyway, so there are some purl stitches that come along here, and they make the colors pop out different times, so that's kind of fun. I did have a funny issue with the purling, in that I would do it. Usually was 3 stitches of purl, and then there might be a make one. And when I did that, my purl stitch kind of slanted downward, so I'd have like 2 straight purl stitches and then curve down. And if I had read the directions, she seems to address that. I didn't even try what she said, but I should have. So read your instructions like a good knitter. I think what she says is that when you make a stitch after a purl stitch, to pick it up from the row below, which I think might in a pattern be LL1. Perhaps. Anyway, I didn't read that instruction. I didn't even notice it. I think it's right at the beginning, so I don't know, just was passing that by. But I had recently read something interesting, I think in Modern Daily Knitting. It might have been Patty Lyons or the other person who gives technical advice on that website. And she had suggested that one of the ways to increase was to simply cast on a stitch on your thumb. And I did that. Now, it kind of interrupted the flow of the knitting, but I did that and it solved the problem. So I think if you just follow her, Amy's directions, that you'll do just fine. The other thing that I might recommend with this is that you might want to swatch part of the yoke to see how the color pops out when you do the purl, because I might have changed my colors and had the red pop out if I had thought about it. But I'm really happy with this this sweater. So what I used was, I'm really getting interested in sustainability. I'm after being just totally fascinated by all the wonderful superwash yarns that have dye up so beautifully with their brilliant color. I have been getting interested in more of the less processed yarns. I guess lightly processed is what I'm looking for, and crunchier sometimes. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for right now. But I was down in a yarn store in south of here in Roseburg, to a store called the Naughty Lady, which unfortunately I've heard is going out of business. So we've lost a yarn store here in Eugene, and also to lose the one in Roseburg is really sad. Of course, Portland has lots of yarn stores, and there's a really fabulous store in Ashland, Oregon, which is 3 hours south of here. But anyway, I was in the Naughty Lady the summer before last, I think, maybe, or it might have been this summer. I can't remember. It's all blurring together in COVIDness. Anyway, I found this yarn called Ailbíona, which is yarn from Peru, and it's done as a to raise funds for a project for women to help them. It gives 100% of the proceeds of the yarn go directly to fund programs for women's economic empowerment in Peru. And boy, that's a great thing. So this is 50% alpaca and 50% fine Highland wool. And it's very soft. The alpaca is very, very soft. So even though I'm heading towards the more rustic yarns, I have to say alpaca is fabulous. My concern with alpaca always is that it will get longer and stretch. But so far I haven't found that. Now, I have not blocked this, partly because I just haven't had a good reason to. The yoke really stretched, really nicely. So, and I haven't found that it's lengthened too much, although length would almost never trouble me. So I do like to know that it's going to stretch, though, so I can plan for it. But usually I don't mind that it stretches a little longer, because I spend a lot of time in leggings, and it's just nice to have that coverage. So anyway, this yarn was quite a joy to work with. It probably is pilling a little bit more than I like, but it's not bad, really. I am a nut about pilling. I hate pilling, and I've had some projects that have failed because of it. But this, the pills are bigger and just kind of come off, and so far I haven't had much trouble with it. I think this might be similar to a yarn that has been I was able to find in the past at a local yarn store called Barocco Ultra Alpaca, that you may be more familiar with. That one also is 50% alpaca, 50% wool. And when one of our local yarn stores closed, I ended up buying a sweater's quantity of that in this brilliant kind of purpley blue color. And so I'm curious to see how this Lunenburg sweater wears, because I'm hoping that it wears nicely. And then I can make something luscious with that ultra alpaca. If you have any thoughts about ultra alpaca, I'd love to hear about it. So anyway, this was my main color. And then for the gray, I have two grays in here, and both of them were Cascade Yarns Echo Alpaca, 100% alpaca. And then I had, the black is a Rowan felted tweed that I think is called Carbon. It's a black color with tweed in it that I really, really like. I made a vest out of that once before. And Rowan felted tweed is really one of my favorite yarns. I haven't knit with it too much, but when I have, I've really enjoyed it. The grays were, because they were 100% alpaca, I thought between the Rowan felted tweed and then the last color was, it's a yarn made in the United States. I was really excited to find that this is a Shetland yarn made in the United States. It's Elemental Effects Shetland Fingering, and it's 100% North American Shetland wool, and it comes in these little skeins, about 118 yards, and one of our local yarn stores was carrying this for a while, and I ended up, I don't know if you can see up in this little basket on the wall, but I have right there, I have all these, every time I went in, I seemed to buy one of those little ones, and I was imagining it for a colorwork sweater I want to do with out of a Shetland Wool Week book, and from last year. So that's one of my upcoming projects. But anyway, I kept buying these different colors because they had so many great ones. So this was a really nice, what do you think that color is? Maybe madder or some kind of a madder. I don't remember what color. They have, Elemental Effects has many colors. So I don't know. This one is dark mountain blue, which is gorgeous. So anyway, even though I had some 100% alpaca in here, it seemed to work fine. It hasn't been stretching too much. So I'm going to step forward so you can see the yoke closer, and then I'll step back and you can see how it fits on me. So I haven't done this yet before, but anyway, here's the yoke. You can see these little pearl stitches popping up. Anyway, yeah, very fun. And here we go. Here's the fit. Well, I'm so short. I'm really short, and I lost an inch in my 7th decade. But anyway, I'm sure that what I did almost always, because I'm very small in the shoulders and I'm bigger in the hips, and so almost always I will add some stitches to the width towards the hips. So I just really, I don't like things clinging, and so I spend quite a bit of time pondering how to finish the ends, how to do the ribbing, and because I just don't want it coming in at the hip area, because it's my biggest part. The hips must be accommodated. So anyway, I know I did that, and I can't remember what her instruction was for the rib, but at the bottom. But I think it was a 1x1 actually. It's a 1x1 rib, and I did that for the sleeves and the neck. But for the bottom, I ended up I just felt like it was clinging too much. I ended up doing a 3x2 rib, which really solved the problem. So I actually thought that I have so much yarn left. I think I have 2 full skeins of it because I didn't buy the yarn for the project. I just hardly ever do that. I should do it, but I buy yarn that I think, ooh, that's really great. And now I try and buy a sweater's quantity. Lately, I've been really overdoing it. So I could actually probably do one of the, go down a size for this part and then switch to a larger size as I head down under the arms. This fits nice. I don't think anybody'd say, hey, it doesn't fit, but it does have a lot of ease in it that, I don't know, do I want to do more? I mean, I love to knit, but maybe I could be finishing my projects faster if I would not make them as big as I do. So, I don't know. Okay, is there anything else I want to say about this? I did do a tubular bind off for the wrists, but not the bottom. And I think partly because this is one of my first tubular, I haven't done tubular bind off much. It just takes me forever. I'm starting to get the hang of it, but even for these little sleeves, it just took me forever. So anyway, okay, I have one more finished project. Actually, I spent so much time trying to film this and agonizing over what I had done, like, you know, fearing, what's the name gonna be? And am I too old for this? That was a big issue for me. And thinking I had to do fancy editing and so forth. So anyway, I have a lot of things to talk about that I've already filmed that I'm going to go back and do for you and fit them in some kind of logical way as time passed. But anyway, I have lots to talk about. And one of the things that I finished recently is this wonderful little tam. It's a beret. And this I did with, okay, let me tell you the pattern. The pattern is, I don't know how to say it. I'll do my best. It's Tettegouche. Everything I reference here, I'll put in show notes, assuming I figure out show notes, but I think I will. It's Tettegouche Tam, and it's a Kate Davies. It's copyright by Virginia Sattler-Reimer or Reimer designed it, and but it was published in a Kate Davies Designs book. And the yarn used is Kate Davies yarn. It's called Milwaukee Tweed, is how I'm saying it. It's 70% wool and 30% mohair. And I think I've now dropped some on the floor. So I'm not going to go looking for that. But anyway, so I used these colors, light gray. This is called Tarbet, I think. A nice blue and a purple, and then a tiny, tiny bit of red. Now, when I made this, I did not think, I remember knitting on it, and I looked down and I'm wearing this sweater and I'm working on this. Honestly, I just kill myself sometimes. I just can't believe it. So I do this a lot where I'm knitting on something and I realize that I am knitting something that's exactly the same color or similar colors, but the heart wants what the heart wants, I guess. So anyway, this is a tam, and I have a couple thoughts about it. So I've knit lots of berets for myself because I love berets. I've never done color work one before. And this yarn is fingering yarn, and I really love it. It has some really gorgeous tweediness to it. Here's the purple. Really nice. And the gray. I just love gray, so I do like gray. But mostly I'm into blue and purple. I love the yarn. I love the fabric it makes, but when I was knitting with it, at times it was so thin. Maybe I'm very inexperienced with lace. I don't knit with lace weight yarn usually, so I don't know, but it was so thin at places that I actually broke it myself rather than have it break later. I just really got nervous with it, but all is well. It's very woolly. It really, look at that. Isn't that great? And then it has this beautiful, look at that. Really nice. So anyway, the other thing about this is that the cast on was 126 stitches, and I started that and it just looks so tiny to me. And I read other people on Ravelry had gone up a size or used more stitches. So I ended up casting on 136 stitches. I think it was 134 or 136. I'll see if I can, did I put it on here? So bad. I'm going to try and do better with record keeping, but I'm pretty sure whatever the number was, obviously I picked a number that worked with the colorwork chart. So I'll go through and see if I can figure out what it was, because check my Ravelry page. I think I did post it already. So I'm gonna give it a go. So there we go. Pretty cute. I like it. I do not look good in beanies, and I was afraid this would be a beanie and not a tam. And I looked at some of the, do you sometimes look at Ravelry pages and you think, oh, I don't know if I want it to fit like that? I always want to look at Ravelry pages and see, oh, this project looks great on everybody. And anyway, I wanted a tam. I did not want a beanie. I like how they look, but not on me. I just look terrible in beanies. So I really blocked it. I ended up blocking it on, I was kind of afraid the edge would stretch out too much if I put a dinner plate in, which is what was suggested. So I actually took a whole bunch of plastic bags, which I seem to never be able to get rid of. I reuse them till I reuse them and reuse them. So I stuffed this with plastic bags, and it really, I'm just really happy with how it blocked out. So, okay, enough about that one. Okay, I'm looking to see how long I've gone. Okay, so I have a couple works in progress that I'm going to tell you about. I hope to do an episode soon where I have two finished objects that look really good together. And one of them is the striped sweater by Andrea Mowry. And okay, so when I was doing this sweater, and lately it's come to my attention that some of the sweaters that I've done for myself are for, I like how it looks to be more open, but I find if it's a heavy sweater, like this one, it's alpaca, it's really warm. I'm going to be wearing this in the winter. And what I find is that I get too chilly on the back of my neck. I have a little t-shirt under this, but I get really cold back here. And I know it's just a good excuse to wear a shawl, but there are times when I would just like to be warmer here. So I'm thinking that when I'm making sweaters for warmth, that I'm going to be more mindful about the neck. I was listening to Andrea Mowry's I'll Knit If I Want To. And if you haven't listened to it, it's really great. I think she does them every Friday. They're about 30 minutes. And she answers people's questions. And she has just put a huge amount of really great knitting advice on there. So if you're interested in her patterns, you should definitely check out her podcast if you haven't already. One of the things that she suggested is that, let's see, on the striped sweater, which I'm working on right now. So here, this is my second one. And sometime soon I will wear my first one. My first one I did as a summer sweater with short sleeves. And this one is going to be long sleeved. So one thing she suggested on her podcast, she offers as an option in the striped sweater that you can pick if you want a relaxed or a structured neck. So in the first one, which I did for the summer, I did a relaxed neck, but this one is a winter one. And so what she has you do is you don't do the collar. You cast on the amount, it's the same amount actually as the amount you start here. You cast on and you just start knitting the yoke. No, not on this sweater. It's not this sweater, but anyway, on the striped sweater, you just start, see here, I haven't done, this is not the collar. It's just like a little short row work that happens. So you are then going to go back and pick up and knit the neck and do all the ribbing there, and then you can make it as long as you want to. So I thought that was a great idea, and I decided to do it. The only thing is that when I do top-down, what I love about top-down sweaters is that you can try them on and see how they look. And I'm almost thinking of tonight going and picking up and knitting the collar on this and binding off the collar, so then I can see, have a better idea on how the sweater's fitting. So somehow it just makes me nervous, because if I try it on with this, look how big that is. And that's all going to shrink down with going down to size 2 needles. I think the pattern recommends size 5 needles, and I'm using size 4, which I almost always have to do. And I'm using these 2 yarns. These are my grays. These are Wool Centrum 2-ply wool yarn. I think they're supposed to be kind of a sport weight. I got them at Woolly Thistle, which is where I have done a lot of retail therapy, I'm embarrassed to say, over the last 2 years, but I like Woolly Thistle. They have really wonderful yarns. This is This is very crunchy yarn. I have seldom worked with such crunchy yarn, but it's Swedish wool, and I just really wanted to give it a try. Not too sheepy. And my third color is Rama Phenol, which is also a very popular one on Woolly Thistle. So these three colors, initially I thought I was just going to do the two grays, but I think this is just going to be a great winter sweater in these colors, and I'll really wear it a lot. So I don't know if I have anything to say about it right now. I'm sure the striped sweater I've done before. It's a very simple, basic sweater. She recommends, she offers it as something you could just do in a plain color. It's really fun to see what people have done with their stripes, and it would be a fantastic way to use one's supply of yarn over here. I like the term wool pantry for all the yarn that I have. I heard Kat on Heather and Hops use the term wool pantry, and I also like the words treasure chest. I think is what Sophia Camaborn uses on the she's on the Camabornia podcast. But I like the words pantry because when I think about my kitchen's pantry, it sort of implies that you will use the yarn, that you're not just collecting it, but you will use it. So I'm trying really, really hard this year to use more. Was that true of my new striped sweater? No. I bought I did have the Rama Phenol in my stash, but not the old Centrum. So, oh well, it's a balance there. But anyway, if you haven't done the striped sweater, it's really worth checking out, especially if you have a whole bunch of yarns that you think might look good together. You don't want to do color work. There's some great colors in there, especially there's some that use mohair and they just like smush together in these wonderful ways. So, okay, let me think. What else can I tell you? Oh, one last thing, and then I will stop. I used to, until fairly recently, I have usually just worked on one project at a time, maybe two at the most. Sometimes it just makes me too anxious to have too many. But I have found more and more that I need to have things at different stages so I can pick them up. So I'm really close to separating for sleeves on the striped sweater. And then when I do that, it'll be lots and lots of stockinette, and I won't have to think about it. The other thing is sometimes I have one other project I'm working on for my husband that's also gray, and when I had both the striped sweater and that gray vest, which is delightful, but gray, I thought I better have some more color. So I started I am not much of a sock knitter, but I found some really colorful yarn on Etsy, and I'm pretty sure this is Nomad yarn. There were some really cute colorways. To me, it looks very different in real life, but there you go. And the project I'm doing is something new. I'm sort of in search. I still haven't found my favorite sock pattern that I can go to all the time. So I've been kind of looking around, and this one, oh dear. Well, okay, it's by Ailbíona McLochlainn, and I'm pretty sure it's the basic integrated sock. And the idea, it was mentioned in Modern Daily Knitting, maybe, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks ago, maybe. And they had 5 of their favorite sock patterns. And the idea with this one is that, you know how when you do the heel and gusset, you just knit with one. You don't go in the round anymore while you're doing the heel. With this one, it's actually the heel and the gusset are all integrated. So it looks like a heel and gusset, but you can keep knitting in the round over and over. And so you can see when you use some striped yarn like that, this is what it looked like. Maybe it's better on the other side. It doesn't look like much of it. It doesn't look like a heel and gusset heel. The other thing is, so I'm kind of curious on how this works, and of course you can change the sizes, but here's the heel on the bottom. I did some kind of wonkiness bit. So anyway, I was intrigued by that idea because I thought if you want to do these fun striped, self-striping socks, that it would be fun to try. So maybe it'll make me love socks. It's still, when I am knitting and knitting on socks, it seems to take me forever. I'm knitting and knitting on socks, and I think, I could be knitting on a sweater. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to keep this down to about 40 minutes, so, and I don't want to edit. So I think I'm going to say goodbye. Yep, that's all I had in my notes. So I'm hoping to post again another episode really soon, and because I have a lot of projects that I want to talk about. I'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. If I'm trying to I think I will continue for a little while and just really test it. And I haven't gone on Instagram. I haven't said anything about it, and I don't have much of a following on Instagram. So I'm hoping to post more of my projects and see if I can get more people following me, because that would help, I think, in getting people to watch this. But even if it's just a small number of us, it's really fun for me, and I've really enjoyed it. So look for my next one, and happy knitting.